welcome to the class. I am Vishali Sharma, your psychology educator, and today we will be doing part 2 of our chapter 2, Self and Personality. These are certain things about myself. And if you want to join my live classes, you may contact on the number given below. Without any further delay, let's begin.
Ising's theory. So, Ising gave the dimension of personality which were broadly based on biological and genetic basis. So, he gave the Penn model. P stands for psychoticism, E stands for extroversion, and N stands for neuroticism. So, neuroticism versus emotional stability. Neurotic individuals are very high on anxiety. They're very anxious, restless, moody, and lose control and very touchy. They cannot control over their feelings. Then we have emotionally stable individuals who are very calm, reliable, under control, and they are self-even tempered. Then there is extroversion and introversion. We have heard it multiple times that you're an extrovert or an introvert, but what is this? So extroverts are basically socially outgoing, whereas introverts are mostly socially withdrawn. Extroverts are active, gregarious, and impulsive, whereas introverts are very passive, quiet, cautious, and reserved. Then we have psychoticism and sociability. So psychoticism versus sociability. Psychoticism and neuroticism are two different things. Please do not confuse with the two. Neuroticism is basically anxiety, neurotic anxiety, whereas psychoticism is an antisocial behavior. So that is why the dimension opposite to psychoticism is sociability. So the person who's very psychotic will be very hostile, egocentric, and antisocial. They will go on a killing spree but will not have any remorse for the other individual. Then he gave a test known as Ising's personality questionnaire. It's very well known test. Then we have 5-factor model of personality by Paul Costa and Robert McRae. So this model is also known as, like, the acronym for this model is OCEAN. So openness to experience, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, and conscientiousness. What is openness to experiences? Somebody who's very outgoing, very what do we call it, risk taking, and very thrill seeking. Extroverts are majorly socially outgoing, active, gregarious. Agreeable individuals say yes to all your requests. They'll be, yes, okay, I will go, okay, you will tell me, I will do everything for you. And neurotic individuals, we have already heard that it's related to anxiety. Then we have conscientiousness. It's related to being disciplined, being very what do we call it, be not just obedient, but we are basically very organized, have timetables, and disciplined are the individual who are high on conscientiousness. So the opposites of these, all the dimensions, are like openness to experiences versus traditionality. Then we have extroversion versus introversion, agreeableness versus assertiveness, neuroticism versus emotional stability, and conscientiousness versus person who's not very organized. Then we have this theory has the most promising empirical research to study the personality. Then we have psychodynamic approach. So psychodynamic approach given by Sigmund Freud, the popular personality in psychology. He studied mind by two of his techniques, named free association and dream analysis. So he gave the levels of consciousness and structure of personality. So levels of consciousness were like consciousness, pre-consciousness, and unconsciousness. Pre-consciousness is basically the thought, the feelings, and that you are not aware of. Pre-conscious, you're not aware of, whereas conscious, the thoughts that you are aware of, and unconscious, the mental activity that you're totally unaware of. For example, consciousness, I am teaching you right now, I'm teaching you levels of consciousness. I'm consciously doing the particular activity and I'm consciously aware about it. Pre-conscious, that's something that I had for a lunch, or I had something for my dinner. So these things that are not relatively in my memory right now, but can be recalled if I am putting a little amount of effort to recall them. Then we have unconscious. Unconscious is basically the mental activity that I'm completely unaware. That can be my traumatic experience of childhood, or something very abusive that might have happened to me, or something that I don't want to remember that has been repressed into deep into my unconscious, according to Freud. Then psychoanalysis has a therapeutic procedure, and the goal of the psychoanalysis is to bring that unconscious material to consciousness safely using the technique of free association and dream analysis. So I told you that he also gave the structure of personality. So structure of personality had three structures. So there was id, ego, and super ego. So there have been certain instincts that Freud has also talked about. Those were like death instinct and life instinct. That death instinct was thanatos. It was something that was pushing us to die, and eros was the life instinct that pushes us to live. Then we have an instinctual life force that is known as libido. It works on pleasure principle, and it is basically actually working like it only. It needs immediate gratification. Then we have it that energize our life or death instincts. So this is basically our source of energy, and this requires its need to be fulfilled immediately. Immediate gratification of our primary needs, maybe sexual desire, aggressive behavior, anything. So it works on basic pleasure principles, and it does not care about the moral values in society. Why does it care about the moral values in society when it is actually working on pleasure principle? मुझे ice cream खानी है. If you are eating in front of me, I will just snatch it and I will eat it. That is it. Then we have ego. Ego grows out of it, and it works on reality principle. Why does it work on reality principle? Because somebody needs to be there to manage between id and super ego. Then we have id, which will be telling us the ways of behaving, and this ego will direct id to behave in a particular manner. It will like curb the demands, unrealistic demands of it, like to satisfy the pleasure principle. Right now it will be patient, reasonable, and responsible. For example, if you want to eat ice cream, you will rationalize the thought that in the meeting currently I seriously cannot have ice cream right now, but I can have ice cream when I am actually at my home or at night or after the dinner. Then we have super ego. The super ego is the moral branch of mental functioning. Moral means things that have been taught by our parents. So it is something that is related to the moral values, not just the moral values, but also something that are socially acceptable and the things that we do in a particular social environment. So it actually suppresses it totally. If you want to eat ice cream and if it is not at all a good thing to do because it gives you cavity and all, super ego will be telling you no ice cream. You just need to sit in the meeting quietly and just go have your healthy dinner or healthy lunch at home and no ice cream. But ego balances between the two, because obviously if somebody is actually putting so huge moral responsibilities on your little bit of conscious what do we call it, choices or wishes like eating ice creams and toffees, then there somebody is required to actually balance. Then we have ego defense mechanism. So ego defense mechanism, here I have also mentioned RQPD for learning all the defense mechanism for your 4-mark answer. You can have RQPD as an acronym for all of these. So defense mechanism is way of reducing anxiety by distorting reality. So you have a real life experience of somebody's death maybe, but you cannot process it because the person you loved was the one who died. So now you want to put that anxious or that anxiety producing information from in your brain to some place where it does not come again and again to your consciousness and trouble you. So first of all we have repression. Repression is basically anxiety provoking thoughts are actually totally dismissed. I don't know about the death, I haven't seen, nobody have died, everybody is basically, I am not denying in repression. I am just repressing it to an extent that I don't know about that particular thing. Then projection. Projection is basically people attribute their own traits to others. This is basically when you have certain stereotype or aggression towards the others of the society or other person. Then you will be saying he acts in an aggressive manner towards me. No, I don't act in an aggressive manner. Rather, this person is actually acting in an aggressive manner. Or if you like somebody or if you love somebody, then you're saying no, I don't love them, he loves me. Then we have denial. So denial is basically refusing and accepting the reality. It's totally refusing. You're not even saying that you do know about somebody's death or you do not know about particular thing. You will be like, no, मुझे तो HIV AIDS है ही नहीं, मुझे तो कैंसर है ही नहीं, पता नहीं कौन डायग्नोसिस देता है, ये तो गलत डॉक्टर के पास गए थे, मुझे तो पता है, मेरे तो नहीं है. Then we have reaction formation. This is basically defending against the anxiety by adopting a behavior that is against or opposite to your own real life feelings. So if not just me, there are people who get unwanted pregnancies and then family actually pressures them ki nahi nahi bacha rakho, and then you have a kid and unfortunately you don't like that kid because maybe because you never wanted to have that kid. So now in that situation, a person, just to curb the anxiety of not liking the kid, forms the reaction opposite to their actual feeling. वो इतना लाइक करेंगे, इतना लव देंगे, एक्सट्रीम लव देंगे कि वो भूल जाएंगे इस बात को कि हमें तो ये बच्चा कभी पसंद या चाहिए ही नहीं था. Then we have rationalization. For example, I did not do well in my examination, so I will say नहीं नहीं मेरा तो पेन ही लकी नहीं था. No, my pen was not working. So that is how I'm rationalizing the whole feeling and behavior into a reasonable and acceptable manner. Then we have sublimation. This is also known as conscious defense mechanism, because you're actually sublimating your anxiety into something productive. For example, a aggressive person starts doing what do we call it, gymming, or they start doing boxing, so that their aggression gets the channel out from the brain and they get to relax. Then displacement is a defense mechanism where you will find a soft target to take out your aggression from the stronger one. So boss scolded a father went and scolded his wife, then the wife scolded the children, and the children then started beating the dog of the house, and then dog started throwing pebbles. So that is how you are actually displacing your aggression on the not so powerful person. Then we have stages of personality. According to Freud, there are 5 stages of personality that we encounter or arrest in one manner after a particular age. So first of all, we have oral stage that starts from 0 to 2, that is like from your birth, and this focuses on the mouth. Then we have anal stage. Anal stage, the child learns to control some of the bodily functions like pooping and peeing. Then we have phallic stage, that is more or less starts from 4 to 6, and it is basically focus is on genitals. And in this stage, the child start to have Oedipus complex or Electra complex. So Oedipus complex is when a little boy start to have the feeling sexual attraction towards the mother, and in Electra complex, the girl start having the sexual attraction towards the father. So in Oedipus complex, basically, if the child is having the same attraction towards the opposite sex parent, he is also having a castration anxiety. That anxiety is of cutting down the penis by the father. Then in this, the superego develops, and the child starts to identify the same sex parent with the same sex parent, and then they start to develop the feelings and the the behavior or personality of their father, so that they can get somebody like their mother. And point to be noted, Oedipus complex is the only complex that was given by Freud. Electra complex was later given by Jung. Then we have latency stage, that has like 6 to 8 years old, and it is basically when all your sexual tendencies are sublimated, and you are actually working on social and achievement skills. Like the child starts to go to the school, they start working, and they start playing, and they start learning, they start doing stuff that is actually important in their life. And then there is genital stage, which starts from 8 years to 12 years. Here the child attains maturity and learns to deal with the people of opposite sex properly, and they get their discharge of their sexual energy by actually engaging into such activities with their partner. Then he also talked about fixation and regression. Fixation is when the child development get arrested in an earlier stage. For example, if the child is of 4 years and it's still fixated into the oral stage, then the child will continue to behave the child who performs the activities of the oral stage. Then regression is actually going back to the earlier stage. In this stage, what happens is a person of 12 years old starts to throw books and these doors. They slam the door when they're aggressive, they start to cry, they start to yell. So they're actually going back to the stage. They are not appropriate to their age. So with that, I am completed with the part 2 of self and personality. See you tomorrow.